hotter the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A fiercest serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
We're back, baby.
How many months of studying Vikings did you accumulate amongst your travels?
I don't know. I started.
You went pretty deep.
Probably a year. Maybe a little bit less than a year. Like 7 months.
So slightly less than the Iliad.
Yes, a little bit less than the Iliad. A little bit faster through this stuff. The Iliad's slower. All right, but we're here, guys. Welcome.
The epic finale of The Vikings with Battle Buddies. Welcome. If you're here and you have not listened to episode 1 and 2, you might want to go back and do that.
You might want to.
Yeah,
What's up
and
to
they're
you?
really good.
I liked them. These are new structure. This is the Vikings Myths, Legends, and Battles, Part 3. Misery and Calamity have begun.
Bro, these are your notes?
Yeah, I'm going to post all of my notes.
Bro, Kevin made like a book.
Yeah, I tried to be more like creative with my note taking.
This is sick as hell.
Yeah.
Good job, Kevin.
Thanks, man.
This looks like something my daughter would do.
I'm going to put it on Patreon just as like, if you want to read my notes.
Yeah, that's cool as hell.
Thanks, man. Try to have fun with it. Okay, so we have covered the mythology of the Vikings. Short answer is that shit was fucked up in the 500s.
They always have to make it. They always have to have the aha factor so it sticks because it was an oral tradition, right?
Yes.
So like you have to make things crazy and wild. So it's like, bro, did you hear last night on the last episode of the Song of Volsungs? He banged his sister. And they're like, yeah, bro, crazy.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
Okay.
And the world was messed up. The 500, 536, worst year to be alive.
The world fucking ended.
Worst year to be alive. That's saying something because we've dropped atomic bombs on each other.
More than that.
We've done more than that.
We've dropped a lot of shit on ourselves.
We've done lots of bad things. Currently not doing things I'm proud of. As like a nation.
Oh, I thought you meant personally. Like, hey,
No,
I'm doing things to myself that I'm not proud of.
Personally,
let's get into it.
Personally, very proud of the things that I do. I feel like I really serve a community here.
Good. Yeah, no, you are a teacher here.
Yeah, and I volunteered coached.
Good. Look at you
T-ball.
go, bro.
Look, I had to learn how to T-ball works.
You are very much a dad.
You're in the dad life too. You're in the sports dad life where your kid's pretty good at sports. And that's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. But my other child who has to work hard like I did growing up, she'll be competing in a grappling competition next month.
Whoa.
But yeah, the sports life is real.
Yeah.
Viking spirits.
There we go. So the world ended, essentially, for Vikings. Then we went to the legends of them all.
Yeah.
And we talked about like the archetypes and how
that was a very fun episode.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I feel like we really got into some conversations that I didn't really hear. You know what the shitty part is? You know, we spend so many months on this stuff. There's no way to like, we're not scouring podcasts that we like and trying to time it with them.
No,
but
the
rest is history had an 8-part Norman saga.
Recently?
Yeah, they just finished it a couple months.
Is this not the
This is the
third
second time.
Okay,
Yeah, they just did the Iliad when we were doing the Iliad. Yeah. I was like, this is crazy to me.
But weren't they also doing something else as well at the same time as us? Yes, the Little Bighorn.
Yes, they did Little Bighorn.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they went into ghost dancing. Dang.
Crazy.
The rest is history. We are there's some synchronicity
it looks
going
like
on.
We're on the same wavelength.
Whoa, we should get them on to do the Battle of Hastings with us. That'd be fun.
They would love to be on our show.
Get in line.
Shut up. Yeah.
Anyway, they have a much longer series on the Vikings.
Did you listen to it?
Yeah, of course I listened.
Fire?
It's awesome.
Fire.
They're so good. And then they're doing a new series. They did like a 2-part series on Japan. And guess what? They're stealing my idea. They're doing like literature, like the old literature, Japanese literature, and what that might tell us about like court life in that time period. Like that's my stick. Like that's my angle.
Dang.
It's crazy. I love it.
Good for them.
Yeah. And I was proud of us. I was like, hey.
I guess we're not completely not clever.
Yeah, we had an idea. Like we knew that there was an angle for this. Like this was underutilized.
Happy birthday to us, bro. This is
3 years.
is a special episode because we're officially 3 years old.
It's awesome.
third episode of the Vikings, 3 years old. It's all synchronizing well.
Yep. Now let's get depressed as hell.
Let's do it, dude.
Yeah. Okay, so we now understand these Vikings a little bit more. We're not going to excuse what they do, but we're not going to love it. Because unlike the media, or if you play Viking video games, like I played through most Viking video games to see how accurate or not accurate they are with the mythologies and feelings.
How'd it hold up?
They're pretty good, except for that none of them lean heavy enough into the parts that you wouldn't want to play as a video game anyway, which is avoiding battle to gain money.
Yeah, because they're all about raiding and pillaging, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't translate to a video game.
Does it not?
I mean, Crusader Kings, you can do it very accurately.
Yeah.
So Crusader Kings 3 is
That's
the
the
unicorn.
one.
That's the unicorn. If you want middle-age realism, play Crusader Kings 3. It's
Yeah.
unfortunately
It's
very
all about
realistic.
your heirs.
Yes. It's all about
Succession.
your fucking heirs.
Yes.
Okay. What do we need to know about these people for context before we get into this raid? I guess we need to think about it.
Wait, so can I just make?
Yeah.
Let me make sure I'm clarifying something here.
Please.
First episode, listeners and myself, was myths.
Myths,
Second episode was legends.
Yep.
And now we have arrived to
the battles,
the battles.
in quotes, because
quotes.
when we do it with other nations and cultures, it's going to be battles. This isn't a battle
Okay.
because the Vikings don't do battles in this time period.
Okay.
So we're in the late 700s right now, 793.
How much rape are we about to talk about?
Unknown. But like all battles, non-zero. That's what
I'm not laughing at rape.
Sure.
I'm laughing at the fact that this is something. Never mind. I don't know, dude. I'm laughing.
it's hard. It's because it's uncomfortable
The
and
thing
real.
that we are saying here at Battle Buddies that we want to get apart is like, if you are in Congress and you want to decide to
Yes.
go to war,
Yes.
then you need
Yes.
to actively talk about rape.
If you are talking
unfortunately.
to your senators, you should ask them how much rape they're okay with
There you go.
every conflict that
There you
they're
go.
agreeing with.
There you
Because
go.
it's not zero.
That's why I'm laughing.
Sexual assault is not zero ever in any conflict we've ever studied.
There we go.
Even if there's only men, it's still non-zero.
We just like to make
Yes.
points.
Okay. We're in the late 700s. I'm going to paint a fictitious picture here. I was kind of playing around with this at the brewery a couple hours ago with my father-in-law.
Let's hear it.
So the world ended, right? And then we decentralized everything. And then let's say my father-in-law is a very can-do guy. Clearly has the North German blood in him because he has blonde hair and gray eyes like his daughter that I just love. And let's say he does fairly well for himself. I imagine he would survive in any time period he's in. So he does fairly well. He becomes kind of like a House Carl thing. And he even has a longship.
Let's go.
I'm just a lowly peasant, right?
Yeah, you're a pleb.
I'm just a dude. But he sees me in the mead hall where we would all congregate. Make no mistake that the Vikings lived what we would probably consider a fairly normal life. They had 8 or 11 different types of breads that they could make at this time period. They're just living normal middle ages shit. And he comes to me and he says, Harold, because my name's probably Harold, because everybody's name is fucking Harold in this time period.
Of course.
And he says, Harold, I see you looking at my daughter. You want to marry her? Absolutely. You've seen those gray eyes? They're wonderful. Well, you should probably come raid so that you can get some money so that you can then pay me in gifts to then take my daughter.
That's how it works? That's how courtship works?
Their social economics is gift giving. That is how you get loyalty from one another. So if I am just still a peasant and I have no wealth, I can't give my loyalty and get loyalty from others through that trade. And then, therefore, my father-in-law would not want to do it with me either because there's no trading, there's no loyalty. It just doesn't work. And that's how their social economics work. So I would agree. All right, 793. And he says, hey, we scouted out an area, and they're not fucking ready. They're not. So this will be easy money.
Let's go.
It's free money, even.
Saddle up, partner.
So then we'll get in the longship. And we will cross the North Sea to the southwest.
Now, how many people are on this ship of mine? Like, what is my?
It's hard to say exactly because longship technology changes, but we can say anywhere from 50 to 100,
Let's go.
not more, if not less. Who knows?
Let's go raid.
Let's go raid. 3 ships. So maybe we'll partner up with 2 other little house Carls. And we'll go and we'll row the North Sea to the southwest, which is, nobody crosses that. This is a huge spot of water. If you know anything about your geography in Europe, I'm heading towards Britain. But I'm heading the long way, right? That's not the way you go. You don't go that way in the North Sea because, I'm going near Scotland. This is just a big body of water right there. And we're going to go and we're going to come up to an island called Linden's Farm. And it's going to be, that's a holy island, meaning there's basically just monks and a couple peasants that are farming. Peasant communities.
Luke Skywalker shit.
Yeah,
out there on your own.
They're very safe people because they have religion on their side and everybody's Christian in this area. So nobody's messing with the priests in this island except for that, well, me and my soon-to-be father-in-law, we're not Christian. So we don't give a fuck about your cross. This is absolutely how it happened.
Okay.
So then we're going to show up with our 3 ships. And we're going to see a bunch of guys with crosses. And some guy's going to come out. And this we think happened. This guy's going to come and, collect his fee. He's like the dock fee guy. He's like the officer. And he's going to be like, all right, it's however many gold or silver to park here. And we're like, sounds great. And then we'll kill him in front of everybody because we want to set the tone. And then we will just ravage an island for a day.
Yeah, pirating stuff.
Yeah.
Just straight pirate.
This is the
Loot.
Linden's Farm raid.
Okay. This is legit?
This is legit. There are other raids before this, we think. There has to have been. And there are raids in other parts of the world. But this is the famous one that we say kicks off the Viking era.
Did you get to look at any archaeological evidence of such things?
Well, more than archaeological evidence, for me, that I liked is I have 2 primary sources I'd like to read
go.
from. 2 primary sources, friends.
Let's go.
Now, I'm trying to back away from your Western European history, like military history, more and more. Not because I'm against it, but because there's so much of it. It's whatever.
Slanted, bro.
Yeah, and there's other parts of the world that are interesting, and I want to give voices and understand it. All that stuff. One cool thing about the Middle Ages in Western Europe is that we have something called the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. I don't know if you've ever read the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. It's fucking fascinating. So the British people at this time period are writing shit down. They're chronicling the major events in order while they're happening. That's why we know so much about the history of this time period, is because monks were like writing it all down for them. It makes it a cool document to look at. So I read through it, and we can read it. They talk more about the warnings that they got. So before we go into the actual raid, because the raid's brutal, one thing to understand about the Christians in this time period is that when bad things happened, it's clearly
it's an omen.
It's a punishment from God,
Okay.
right? And there were omens for it that you can retroactively see. So they're going to talk about the omens that they see. So this is from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. This year came with dreadful forewarnings over the land of the Northumbrians, terrifying the people most woefully. These were immense sheets of light rushing through the air, and whirlwinds and fiery dragons flying across the firmament.
What?
These tremendous tokens were soon followed by a great famine, and not long after, on the 6th day before the Ides of January of the same year, the harrowing inroads of heathen men made lamentable havoc in the Church of God in Holy Island by rapine and slaughter.
They fucked them up.
Wrecked them.
Yeah, bad. And the moment I heard January 5th, I believe, right?
Yeah, the 6th day before the Ides of January.
Aw, Tiny Tim won't be coming home for Christmas.
No.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer.
The dates are a little wonky. Like they get screwed up with their dates a little bit. But basically we know it's spring, because spring is when you raid.
Spring is raid time.
Yeah, it's all about
Spring
seasonal,
offensive. Yeah.
right? We farm in the fall. We survive the winters,
Yeah.
especially the more north we go, and then in the spring we raid. That's how it works.
Circle of life.
Circle of life. Okay, we have this other primary source. This guy is named Alkene, and he is kind of like this monk guy. He's like a cleric. He's also a scholar, and he also tutors King Athelred the Unready, his kids, which is crazy. So this dude's like a big deal.
Quite the resume.
It's a pretty great resume. And he writes about it that same year. So in 793, he writes this letter.
Now, why would that matter, Kevin? Why are you saying that detail?
Oh, sorry. For those that don't follow history stuff, the closer we can get a primary document to the year that something happens, the more reliable that document is. And it's logical.
In theory, right?
In theory.
Yeah.
But the logic is sound. And I follow the logic, not blindly, but it takes a lot for me to discount the logic.
I would certainly appreciate that if the story was written down, somebody wasn't like 15 years later, I should write this down.
Yes.
Remember that thing 15 years ago? Like, no, not really.
Even 15 is not too bad.
Really?
As far as like history. Well, the
Because
idea...
orally it's still happening in theory.
It's still happening. Well, the idea with the logic is that if I write something down, I'm not going to lie too much, because if other people also have a shared history of it, they won't like what I wrote down.
Because
they
of
would
the
challenge it.
perspective?
Because if I did a big lie, they're like, that's
For
a
sure.
fucking lie.
Well, that's the whole Herodotus thing, the father
Yes,
of
it's
lies.
the Herodotus thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so he wrote his shit down so late, who knows how much of it's made up.
Totally.
And that's the big issue with Herodotus. Not to say we shouldn't read him, because he's wonderful.
No, totally.
But that makes this letter much more interesting in terms of how much we can put weight on it. It probably is pretty fucking accurate if he wrote it the same year and it's just a letter to somebody.
I like it.
He says, "Never before has such terror appeared in Britain as we have now suffered from a pagan race. Nor was it thought such an inroad from the sea could be made." So that's the first half.
I like pagan race.
The pagan race.
Yeah.
That was awesome. No issues there. But when he's saying there, nobody should be able to make that sailing trip. Nobody should be able to sail from
We're
from
saying that
Daneland.
because of the temperament of the sea, correct?
Yeah, because the North Sea, because in the Iliad, we talked about when the gods were flying all weirdly. We're like, why are the gods flying to all these weird cities? Because you always keep the shore in the horizon. You always keep that in your view. Well, it is more than one horizon length away from Britain to where the Vikings.
So you get lost.
Daneland. So yeah, nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Vikings are like, I don't fucking care. I'll just do it. Like, that is unheard of. Nobody does that. Nobody does that except for like the Maori. Like nobody in this area can do something like this. And
Legendary.
So they absolutely are blazing a trail.
Do we attribute this to their amazing naval ships or their just ability to navigate the sea? Luck?
Personally, I think it is a testament to how desperate they were.
Oh.
I think
Because it's not a good economic system.
no, they lose lots of ships.
Yeah.
For what we don't have a lot of records. Like, I don't have any records from the Vikings of this raid because this raid's nonsense to them, right? It's just like a thing that happened, but who cares? They do lots of raids everywhere. And there's no centralized government. But I think that this shows that they were so desperate for wealth and for food that they were like, I'm going to go that way and just hope I get something.
Is this like the kind of same sentiment as like, it was either the military or jail for me, or like the military or death?
Yes. I think it was, I'm very hungry,
You know what I'm
or
saying?
I want to rise above my station. You know, I don't want to be.
So perhaps they just felt as though they had no other choice.
That's how I think
Roger
the
that.
early ones are like
That is their Hail Mary.
Yes.
Is crossing the North Sea. That's metal.
And we can, before we keep going on, we can talk about that for a second. Like my evidence for it is that they go all over the world. So they are going to go to America.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's
a
yeah.
big deal.
Yeah, it is.
So they go to Iceland, they go to Greenland, and then they go to Canada and then America.
Okay, so then why is it that in history we grew up with in 1492, right? well, I'm just saying, why didn't we say that the Vikings discovered North America?
Because they don't stay and colonize it the way they do. This, I think the Columbus thing, I think it's stupid history shit. like I don't think we celebrate the Vikings because what they do is not great.
Because they pirated?
Yeah, I think that Columbus is the last time they did it. It's the last time it was the first voyage.
Mm.
Like, so it's the last time it was the unknown.
Let's make America Vikings again.
Sure. What about the Native Americans who are already here?
Mava.
I always struggle, like, Native Americans are already here. Like, come on.
Yeah.
They didn't discover shit.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
The Vikings also go to, like, Africa. So
really?
Yes. They go to Rome and they go to
Do
the
we
Mediterranean
know-
Sea.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're like in Sicily shit. Like, they're all over it. Russia, this is like a conspiracy theory, but not a conspiracy theory, but the history of Russia is so complicated that who can really say anything with
Let's
certainty?
hear it.
Russia comes from the word Rus. Rus could mean river, which means that Russia as we know it could be Vikings sailing east, founding this place called Russia.
Really?
Yes.
Crazy.
They go all the way to like China. They go to Baghdad.
Okay, let's talk Civ 7 for a second.
Yes.
So these are scouts? Are we scouting? Are these scouting missions? Am I clicking on the map and saying scout here?
You're saying scout here, but they're not normal scouts. Because your normal scouts are straight recon, right? They can't do anything.
Yeah.
These are scouts that also just
Raid.
take shit. Yeah, they don't
They're
care.
pirating.
So
So okay. So then they're going from place to place fucking shit up. In China too?
I don't know. So China, but yeah,
These guys do not come in peace.
they go to Baghdad. At least I have it. Like I have it in my map right here that they at least went to Baghdad. It's like they're near east, if not east. They are there. Any river that we'll talk about the river tactics soon, but like their river tactics are unparalleled because these boats are tiny and they're really long.
They're narrow, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and they can get them over the ocean, which is crazy. But then they take those same boats and they can go up your tiny river too. They don't care. Like they'll do whatever.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's a freeway. Like they have so much mobility. Everybody else is in this area is relying on horses, which is so powerful. Except for that this beats it right now. If I don't want to fight you.
Yeah, you're just showing up on port cities
Yes.
and killing people in front of their entire towns and then being
Yes.
like, all right, this is about to be a rough 24 hours.
Yeah, so here's the second half of the letter. Behold, the church of St. Cuthbert, spattered with the blood of the priests of God, despoiled of all its ornaments, a place more venerable than all in Britain is given as a prey to pagan peoples.
Yeah, dude. So if you're like a Christian, you do not like Vikings.
No.
You're very. I feel like. How has modern day why are modern day Christians worried about Harry Potter and not Vikings?
Well, they end up winning. They beat the Vikings eventually
Oh, cool.
because they convert them all.
Oh boy.
Eventually, it's weird, but the Vikings essentially win Europe.
And then convert.
And then they need to keep power. The best way to keep power in this part of Europe is to get the Pope to sanction what you've done. Best way to get the Pope to sanction what you've done is to say you'll convert your army. So then you convert your army real quick. You don't give a fuck. And then you have the legitimacy that you needed.
You don't give a fuck.
It's just words to you. Who cares?
You guys believe in God now. We do? Yes.
Which one? Like, that's literally what they're saying.
Which one? Okay. That's fun. All right.
A couple other things we know about it. So we know it was bad. We know that there was lots of murder. The people of Linden's Farm had no protection, right? They don't have an army. They had that one officer who kind of controlled the port, and he was killed immediately. The images that we get from later sources is essentially like priests walking up to them with crosses and then just getting mutilated in front of them.
It's a Tarantino movie.
Yes. Families, kids, everybody that's there, put into slavery, mutilated. They would, there's stories of them walking them out to the sea and just drowning whole batches of people. Like, it's brutal.
Wow.
And this would not be uncommon or irregular. If you look through the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, you can see just like entry after entry of these little boats. This was 3 boats. And they'll just come onto an island that's never had protection because in Civ 7, I don't put protection on the ones that are only open to the open ocean because nobody crosses the open ocean right? Nobody should have that technology, so I protect my inlets.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I protect my
there's
hot
no
gates,
chance.
right?
Yeah.
I funnel everything,
Mhm.
and then I build walls right there. And so this went around your system and broke your system, and it was not good. They're also going to put lots of
Yikes.
people into slavery. So,
Of course.
my name's Harold, and I'm just a peasant, and now I have a couple slaves, and I have some gold. I have enough gold for the rest of my entire life, and
Now you get to marry.
we sail back. I sell my slaves, and I use those profits to get loyalty with my now father-in-law, and I have
Yeah.
a family like I've always wanted, and I live potentially a very peaceful life, never doing violence again. That's not to excuse what they're doing, but I'm saying it is complicated. and
Best
we
case
shouldn't.
scenario, I come back and I don't look back, and
That
I'm
was
not
just a
in-
thing I had to do.
I'm not in the military.
Yeah,
That's just a part of the Viking way.
that was
This is
my
the way.
yeah, that was my.
That was my walkabout.
That's all the sagas talk about doing the same things, right? Like the raid is an afterthought in those sagas that we were reading, right? They said it was usually one sentence or two sentences at most that we could find where it said he raided to gain his wealth, and then he gained his wealth. So
That's that. And so, how long do they do this? How long are these tactics going on for?
these
Until, of course, they find the Lord.
No, it's both finding the Lord and it's the changing of how much they can protect this style of raiding. So if we go back to our idea that there are three, in general, types of strategy and tactics, right? There's control, there's aggression, and there's tempo.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a straight aggression one.
Yeah.
And it's aggression based on economics. So like, I'm not interested in chivalry. I'm not interested in pride. I'm interested in gaining wealth as fast as I can.
That's it.
That's it. I don't give a fuck about anything else.
There's no diplomacy about this whatsoever.
No. There's no government for you to even complain to.
Where?
We're decentralized.
Right.
We have nothing.
There's no state.
There's no state. You have to go find my one house Carl, right? My father-in-law at the mead hall and yell at him. He's gonna kill you. He doesn't give a fuck about this.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't.
Have you watched on Netflix The Last Kingdom?
I watched the first couple seasons.
Bro.
So that first battle, kind of accurate, except for that's late Vikings.
Yeah.
That's tens.
But the whole meat hall
1000.
thing is in there.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
because it's
And
legitimately.
you got old timers in there talking about, oh yeah, just like, yeah, exactly. If an outsider comes in here, they're gonna get murked.
Yeah, because there's no. You're right. There's no state. There's no entity. That was all decentralized out of necessity, and it's not built back up yet. It
So
will
is
take
this like a
several hundred-
libertarian's wet dream?
This is the libertarian dream, and libertarians should take note of what it actually looks like. It's terrifying,
Do they have fences around their homes?
right?
Do they?
Yeah, of course they do.
Do they?
They have to because of the berserker trainings. Right? 'Cause if you wanna
Because
be-
of the berserker,
If you want to become a
trainings.
berserker, you're living in the woods near a city, and you're going to be raiding that city in bear suits,
yes,
like a crazy, like literally as a crazy person.
yeah,
That's not great.
no,
All right, so that's essentially Lyndon's Farm. There are some really good passages by historians that are worth checking out if you're interested in more of the Lyndon's Farm part, where they talk about, there should be the sounds of kids laughing, and there's not. There should be the sounds of monks praying and chanting, and there's not. Like these historians like Neil Price, like they're very good at reinforcing this idea that yes, we know the context, but there's now populations of people that aren't here because of what this economic aggressive policy is. There's also this weird thing. This is the most conspiracy theory thing that like I have, which is called either the Doomsday Stone or the Domesday Stone. And so these three Viking ships show up. They just wreck everything, right? Like this island is literally just on fire and there's nobody there anymore. And they leave this stone behind, this like statue. And
what's going on here?
it's like
It looks like someone's crowd surfing.
it looks like little Vikings with little swords. And people are like, is this a fucking calling card? Is this, they knew what they were going to do and they lugged a stone with them on their little boat. And then they left the stone as like, by the way, we did this.
Yeah,
It's weird.
It's like leaving a Joker card.
It's like
this-
leaving a Joker
yeah.
card. Like, be afraid of us for next time.
Sounds like a lot of work.
That is what struck me. I was like, if I had to row and somebody's like, hey, I'm going to put this giant stone in here. It's going to be hilarious. I'm like, you're not putting that stone on my boat,
That's
dude.
more things that we have to row.
Yeah, I'm not going to row that stone for
Yeah.
a joke. For
How
a
big
bunch
is that?
I don't know. But any amount of stone
The
that I
fact
don't
that they
need,
had to have that amount of detail on the people means that it had to be a big chunk of stone.
it'd be pretty big.
Yeah.
For everyone to recognize it and
Mhm.
save it through the years.
Yes.
The fact that it still exists.
Crazy.
Crazy. Okay. Lyndon's Farm. Any other questions on Lyndon's Farm?
No, it's pretty messed up. There's places that can you go to today to check out the site of Lyndon's Farm?
Yeah, you can go to Lyndon's Farm.
That's cool.
So Lyndon's Farm is like in Wessex. So you're
Mhm.
looking at northern Britain before Scotland,
Hmm.
right? I've never been there.
I
But
was gonna ask, have you been to?
no, I've never been to Europe.
Me neither.
Okay. So the weird thing about that is no battle. But that's actually what we're going to see is a feature, not a bug, of the Viking strategy and tactics, which is what we're going to get into now. So we're going to be ending at like the 850s. So 790 is like this kicks off the whole Viking era. And we'll end around the 850s because things start to change in like the 900s. That's like a whole different era of Vikings.
Do we have any orienting things that you can give me as far as 850? Like what's happening on planet Earth? Do we know?
850s. Just everybody's aware of Vikings. It's been 100. It's been 60
Vikings
years.
are going hard in the paint.
This is when Vikings are starting to really make their move
Okay.
for the next 150 years.
Okay.
Until the thousands. Okay. Like I said, they are doing aggressive strategies, but their aggressive strategies is not like we've talked about previously, where I'm aggressively going to engage with your army. It's I'm specifically going to aggressively not engage with your army.
Yeah. I'm going to bypass that entire thing
I'm not interested in that at all.
and just murder.
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of the things like this that make you understand why things like the Geneva Convention
Yes.
exist, where it's like, we should lay down some ground rules for war.
They're even worse. They got really good at not just bypassing the armies, but learning, because Vikings were incredible at gaining intelligence through word of mouth.
Really?
Yes, their intelligence gathering, because
Human intelligence.
think about it.
Interesting.
They traveled the North Sea to this very specific island they knew was undefended.
Mhm.
How did they know that? They
Somebody
had to
said that,
have
yeah.
information, and that information had to be reliable enough for them to do that.
Do you think they got the information and killed them immediately after they got that information?
No, I think they just paid the guy. They were just drinking with people.
Okay.
I literally think that they just know how to go to a meat hall anywhere in the world.
You were saying that Vikings have riz.
They have riz. They seriously, I think it's just they are fun people, and they are not inherently violent, or at least the ones they send to these meat halls. I think they're just funny. They're just like the big, funny, drunk guy that you know, right?
Yeah.
That guy's not a bad time,
No.
but he's also not dumb,
No.
right? Like that guy's sharp. He just pretends not to be sharp. And then
He's relaxing from after like murder and stuff.
yeah. Well, this thing like in college, I'm thinking like there was always like a giant big guy that was really fun at parties.
The Chris Farley.
Yes. And, what if that guy was actually just really smart and he knew how to use that to disarm you,
Ah.
right? And
get
I'm not
information.
actually, to get information, because
Yeah.
I'm just talking to you and, oh, where are you from? Oh, that's just,
Oh yeah.
meat hall politics is how their economics work.
I'm deep in Cold War espionage stuff, dude. So
So anyway, besides the islands that were undefended, they learned when everyone's holidays were.
so when
they
your
would-
guards are down.
And when there would be more people for their slave trade.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah, it went there quickly.
I was thinking more along the lines of
I
like,
know.
oh, we're celebrating, so we're
So I'll
drinking.
go somewhere else. Yeah, nope. They were like,
Got
oh,
it.
this will be
more people.
more disarmed people. That's even easier for us. And then I'll make even more money. Because again, some of these trips, some Vikings only had to do one of these raids in their entire life. One season would be enough to set
That's what
them
you were
up
saying.
for
Yeah.
multiple generations, potentially. Not everybody. Not every, sometimes they don't make it back. Sometimes the ship sinks. Sometimes they are met with, heavy cavalry and they get killed. But a lot of the time, it works out pretty well for them. And I'm getting a lot of this information from different sources, but the source that I have in front of me is Viking Tactics in West Francia, laying waste to everything. This is from a medieval war anthology that I've looked at, and the theme of this one is Viking invasion, obviously. So anyway, they would not try to go into pitched battles. Through the 850s, the Vikings are not actually very good at, nor do they want to go into big fights. I think for the main reason that they don't have horses. It is their great weakness in all of these conflicts. They're using these longships. These longships are too small for horses, and it's just not part of their whole technique. And so they can't get into these big, 700 men fights with heavy cavalry and shit. It just wouldn't work. They'd get decimated. Okay, what they do end up doing is they switch. They have this aggressive strategy of I'm trying to raid these different places. As 60 years pass and they're getting closer to the 850s, the need for them to stay longer makes itself more apparent. So they start going into these rivers in like France. There's so much to raid there that they don't want to just leave, or it gets cold and it's winter, and so they need to stay for the winter because they can't sail back in the winter. So what they'll do is they'll go to an island and then they'll fortify that island. So they'll dig a big trench around their little place and they'll build this little place. In chess, you call this an outpost, right? So in chess, what happens is I'll march a pawn up to like the middle of the board, and then that pawn's like, kind of stupid by itself. And then I'll throw like a bishop or a knight right next to it so that my pawn's blocking that knight. So now, even though I just have like a knight way out in the open, it's actually
fortified.
It's very fortified, and you can't just take it. That's essentially what they're doing. They're throwing out a pawn. That's the island, and they fortify them inside this island. So they can still go out and raid as much as they want. All winter they can raid. And then they stay safe in their little island.
It seems... Is any adversary calling them out as cowardly, being cowards? Because they're not abiding by your, asymmetric warfare, our army versus your army tactics. Is anybody complaining about this and being like, these guys are just coming in and like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't think so.
Does that make sense?
They might be. The weird thing is the contradiction of the Vikings is while they avoid pitched battles, they're not scared of them.
Yeah.
Like they will go into it if they need to, and there is need in this time period in like the early 800s, mid 800s. And if they can neutralize some of the horses, or they get their own horses that they steal from the French, they will do the fight, and they will just use verbal commands. Like they'll have a commander who is probably the house jarl, and he'll just give out like ranks, and then they'll do a 5-man deep shield wall.
Okay.
And they'll fight to the last man. They don't give a fuck.
Okay. So they're worthy adversaries, you would say?
I think if you think of adversary as somebody who can compete against your system, yes.
Okay. That was...
Also, chivalry doesn't exist yet. Like the chivalric codes, that comes later. That comes in like... It's weird because when we think of like King Arthur and stuff...
So that's where that term comes from, the chivalric codes. Can you educate me on that for a second?
So the chivalric codes this is Middle Ages stuff in Western Europe about like how a knight should act.
No shit.
But all that comes out of necessity because of how people were acting. Think about the Battle of Hastings. Battle of Hastings, William the Bastard, William the Conqueror takes over Britain, right? He wins, and so a Norman essentially is now in charge of Britain, and he puts all of his Norman Viking buddies in charge of all like the houses. They don't treat everybody very well, and a lot of these landowning like quote unquote knights don't treat everybody very well. So much so that the peasants uprise a couple times and get put down a couple times, and then you're gonna have. Let's have a little code about how you should act.
Got it. Let's write some codes down. Yeah. And so when we say chivalry is not dead, that's what it means. Calling back to.
So then we create the chivalric code, which is how like a knight should act, how a peasant should act to a knight, how the knight should act to a peasant. Like I protect you, You work for me.
Whoa.
That kind of thing.
Was this all found out during your little Viking?
Yes. I've learned so much.
Shit, dude, that is dope.
But the hard part is, it's the same thing with like the Bushido code for samurai. Like that has been manipulated and then transplanted back in time.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with chivalric code. Like they designed it and then they kind of like stick it back into these ancient, legendary, like King Arthur people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't have it in that time period.
Okay.
And that's the confusing part. Okay, so when they are fighting and they're forced to fight, they will use shield walls. So very much like a phalanx, 1 to 5 man deep. The leader needs to be in it, right? And so they'll have a banner like the eagle, the Roman eagle.
No.
All this stuff is Roman because, you know, Roman generals by the end, by like the 500s, are a lot of times Northern Germans, right? So Northern
because Romans
Germans
took over them. Is that what you're saying?
So like the Rome would conquer like
yeah,
some German people.
yeah.
In
And
Gauls,
now they're Roman generals.
and they
stuff.
loved
Yeah.
them. So then they made them their generals.
Okay.
So a lot of that military expertise has somehow survived through oral traditions. So like they do
I
have
believe
banners.
in the show HBO Rome, they have generals in their Roman legions that were captured from Gaul.
Oh, that makes sense because that show starts right after Vercingetorix
For
is
sure.
captured. Yes. Crazy.
Cool. Making connections.
Okay. Let's see. They were very good at instilling terror. Terror was one of their weapons.
Like terrorism.
Just straight terrorism. So like when they captured
Just straight terrorism.
Ragnar Lodbrok, who's like one of the famous Vikings of this time period, he like captured an island and they were trying to do ransom with some of the people that he had captured, and instead he just hung 111 of the prisoners within eyesight of the opposing army.
Whoa.
So they could see how slowly they could kill them all in front of them.
So that's like some psychological fucked up
Yes.
horror. Holy shit. Your mom did not hug you enough growing up.
Yes.
Wow. That's like the darkest you've gone, dude.
Dude, the funeral, there's like a famous funeral, and I'm not going to do it because I've heard too many podcasters read it.
Oh, really?
But it's worth checking out. And it's the funeral service of what we think was a pretty successful Viking.
Yeah.
It's messed up, man.
Really?
It's so bad.
It's going into detail about the things that he used to do.
Well, so he died, and then he had like a slave widow lady who was, he was sleeping with.
Ugh.
And then, so all of his Viking subordinates took turns like
Oh my
raping her
God, dude.
in his honor.
Oh.
And then,
Oh my God.
and then an old woman helps her die so that she could
This is
die
awful.
with
Yeah, never mind.
it's so bad. It's so bad.
All right. I believe you now. Our episodes do say explicit when people
They are
like
explicit.
yeah.
We're not going to hide away from the bad stuff. I'm only not doing that because it's been covered too many
No,
times.
Bless you. By the way, we both do that. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
we both make sure we're being original.
Sure. One thing that I don't hear people talk about is it's called the swine array or the boar snout, which is a wedge-shaped formation they can also do. This is this crazy thing. So they would use this wedge-shaped formation after their shield wall. So they could shield wall, but then they're not just like, I know we think of barbarians and Vikings barbarians, and I'm saying all these horrible things that they were doing, but they're not dumb, right? Like they are smart, intelligent people, and they are exporting this evilness for a purpose. And so if they needed to, they could wedge their formation. So they could push their middle out in the front, and then their sides could become, like a boar's snout.
For sure.
And then they can use that to essentially just mess up like arrows, and they can mess up cavalry.
Yeah, you're like spearheading things. That's
Yes.
like literally, that's dope.
So, and they're doing that all, there's nothing written down yet by these guys, right? They're all still oral tradition. So they are practicing pretty sophisticated battle tactics.
maneuvers here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like drumline.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a wheel, right? Like they're wheeling around.
Mhm.
Which takes we've watched videos of the Civil War reenactors wheeling. It's complicated.
Hell, bro.
I'm working with middle schoolers right now because we're getting ready for this thing called Sportorama. So I just have a bunch of random kids, and I'm trying to get them all to walk to the beat of like Wellerman and other sea shanties. It's complicated.
Very difficult.
It's very difficult, and
Very
we have to
difficult.
get them to turn, and it's really, really hard to do correctly.
Bro, we compete in boot camp on marching twice. There's initial drill and then final drill. And it's like, you get towards the end, you get very prideful of your marching, but it's like so incredibly difficult, bro,
Yeah, I
to
imagine.
march. Oh my gosh. That's why it's impressive.
Yes.
I imagine that even also is a terrorism tactic. If you can do things in unison like that, it just shows that you have your
Yes.
shit together.
Yeah, and so a lot of if I was looking at the weaknesses of their fighting,
Well, the horse's lack of cavalry.
the lack of cavalry, which they circumvent by either that wedge formation, or because if you have a wedge, then they can't just encircle you, right?
Right.
They have to be careful, or else you can pick them apart on the sides. The other thing is that sometimes they would also steal horses, and so they adapt to whatever people. So studying the Vikings is weird because I'm talking about the Vikings as a Northern European people, but there's also the American side of it, right? The North American side of the Vikings, very different.
Yeah.
And then there's the Near East side and the Russian side, very, very different. They adapt and modify depending on whatever culture they are near.
Yeah, I guess you would liken it to, bears. This is a brown bear.
Yes.
This is a grizzly bear. Vikings, different types of Vikings.
Different types of Vikings.
Yeah.
Their weakness and their strength, I guess, depending on how you look at it, it really comes down to their leader. So the leader has a banner, right? Somebody's going to be their standard bearer, and they want to see that standard bearer moving forward. Like that is their morale.
Oh, no shit.
Yes, because
The flag is moving forward.
the flag's moving forward. I better move forward too. I don't want to be left behind because I know economically. Remember, my whole goal is to start. If I'm thinking the most sympathetic I could be to a Viking would be Harold, who wants to just start a family. That's all he wants. And so he sees the standard bearer moving forward. It's like, I better get in this or else I'm not going to get my share of the loot, in which case I'll have to come back out here another year not having a family. So I'm going to go do it.
Dear Minnesota Vikings fans, you guys need to implement this flag
Oh,
thing
the
while they're
flag would be
marching
dope.
down the field.
That'd be cool.
That's dope.
Okay, and this is going to keep going, and they're going to keep changing depending on the peoples that they're interacting with. Like, this is a very French, British version of the story. It's going to culminate in this area in 1066 with the Battle of Hastings. I want to do a Battle of Hastings episode.
Isn't that deep? Isn't that like quite layered?
My problem is there's so many characters named Harold. It is
It's
impossible.
the Muhammad of the
Dude. Harold, Fine Harold, Harold, Fair Hair, Harold, Bluetooth, Harold, like all of these.
Harold is a family, I assume. This is
No,
the
it's
Harold
just the guy's name.
Oh.
Everyone's just named Harold or William or Canute.
Okay. How long was the Battle of Hastings?
It was only a couple days.
Oh, so it could be covered.
Oh, we'll cover it at some point because we'll at least have to cover the Stanford Bridge, which is where we think the song "London Bridge is Falling Down" comes from.
Oh.
Because there was supposedly a Viking and he's standing on the bridge and no one can pass him because he's such a Viking.
He's such a Viking.
And they do this in the anime, the Vinland Saga, which is fun. So no one can mess with this guy. He's just like screaming. He's like, I love being a Viking so much. And the only way they stop him is somebody has to take a little boat and they go under the bridge and then they poke him in the dick from below. And that's how they get him to die.
Dick.
And they're like, great show. Great form. Love this.
That would be a way to do it.
Yep.
Getting him in the dick.
Yeah, so then they will essentially take over. So if you play Crusader Kings 3, there is a way to start in like the 1100s. And the first thing you notice when you do the 1100 campaign is a lot of Vikings here, like in all the different heads.
Really?
And so they kind of just take over a lot more of Europe than I realized. But we don't realize it because no one's like enormously proud of it.
Yeah, because it's fucked up.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
And they assimilate to the cultures that they're in to their own extent that they can. And so they kind of disappear a little bit as far as a culture. Because they're an oral tradition. They don't mind taking on other religions. They need Christianity to legitimize their rule so that they can better govern people. They're smart enough to govern people, so it's complicated.
Vikings are complicated.
Oh, I have a last fact before we wrap this up, which is runic magic. We talked about runic magic the first time. We use runic magic every day. I don't know if you know this.
Tell me, Kevin, when you sneeze and say bless you?
What do you think we use for runic magic in our life every day?
Let me think.
Yeah, think about it for a second.
Runic.
Once you realize what it
magic.
is, you're going to be like, I fucking know this.
Yeah, see, my mind is going towards... Is it an interaction thing?
No.
With another person?
No.
It is not.
Remember, the runes are the magic.
Yeah.
Right? I draw the runes to make my magic.
Oh, when we write our name?
Almost. It's Bluetooth.
Oh.
Bluetooth is a runic bee.
Whoa. Oh.
Modeled after Harold Bluetooth.
Really?
Yeah, that's what you named it after. Because it was a Dane who made it.
That's dope.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's fun.
That's what that bee is. It's like
I had no idea.
It's like a weird.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's a rune.
The Bluetooth symbol is a rune.
It's a rune. I don't think it's a magic rune, but who cares? It's so close. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
Like,
I
that's
never
fun.
noticed that. I always thought it was like it was supposed to literally be like a blue tooth.
Right, but Harold Bluetooth, that's what his name could have been. Because remember, they grooved out their teeth
Got
to make
it.
them scary. So he probably had blue ink in his teeth.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And remember, we still have Viking legacies in our language. So many days of the week are
Right.
just Viking names.
Yeah,
So-
no, Vikings for sure have like they
They've
are
survived.
still shoehorned into our
Yes.
culture, bro. Very much so to this day. Our city that we currently, Solano County, has multiple Viking mascots for schools.
Do.
Like Vanden does. I went to my middle school did the Sullivan Celtics. So way to just really lean into celebrating rape, guys. We should get rid of everything Viking. That would be the right answer, right? Get rid of the Minnesota Vikings, turn it into the Minnesota Longbeards. Oh, but that's still piratey.
It's still piratey.
I don't know. Hey, email us with what we should replace all Vikings with.
There you go.
Because that
On a
would
blanket.
solve,
Yeah, let's solve
the
all the
issue.
problems.
Let's erase history and make better history so we do not hurt people's feelings. Hey, that's a joke. Thank you for listening to our Vikings series, dude. That was pretty tremendous that you were able to do all that. Like, you continue to impress me, bro, with
Thanks,
your
man.
ability to retain information.
This is Glaze right here.
Glazing!
I got a shout out too for a book recommendation that I think everyone should read if you're interested in music, which I know you are, which is my buddy wrote a book called Punk. His name's Marcus Clayton. I finished it. It's very good. If you want to know about the punk rock scene in Southern California,
Yeah.
and specifically about being a punk rocker of color, very interesting.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's a lot to learn there. I don't want to.
What city does he like mainly focus on? Long Beach?
Long Beach and LA.
Dope. That's
Yeah.
a huge punk scene,
Yes.
dude.
And
Massive.
he's just a great guy. Like I loved his writing. I don't want to like spoil the story, but it's very good.
Awesome. Okay, absolutely. Literature. We are supporters of literature here
Absolutely.
for sure. Thank you 100% from everyone who listened to this.
Yes, thank you guys.
We appreciate you. Hit us up on all the... If you don't see us a lot on social media these days, it's mainly because we're reading. But it's... Yeah, we try to be as interactive as humanly possible on those things.
Coming out with us on Discord. I've been going on Discord more and more.
Good.
So if you want to interact and like play a game or just talk about something, just shoot me a message on Discord or just pop into one of the lobbies and you get the notification and I'll hop on.
Any hints for what you're doing next?
No.
Do you not know yet?
I do. I'm not going to say that.
Okay. I had a feeling you were going to go that route with it.
Because I have two. We've now been doing this long enough to where I've read books that we haven't covered.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm debating either finishing one of those ideas
Mm.
that kind of I hit a dead end and I now know what I would do with it,
Okay.
or somewhere new and fun.
Okay.
I'm debating also the Odyssey because the
Yeah.
Odyssey movie's coming out,
When
and
is
I
it
want
coming
to
out?
next year. But it takes a while to read the Odyssey. The Odyssey's a long ass
Oh
book,
yeah.
so I didn't want to go straight into more literature because I don't know if listeners are like enough of the fucking literature, Kevin. But that movie's gonna be a fun time. We love Nolan, and we just covered the Iliad and the Odyssey's the sequel. Like I don't know, it's hard not to do that one. So we'll see.
Hit us back with what you would want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have a next week we're recording we're going to be talking about some Cold War and possible World War III flashpoints, bro.
I'm so excited.
I have some really fun ideas that I'm bringing that we've not done before that I'm very excited about.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's good because I have nothing but anxiety about this.
You shouldn't. I
Okay.
would say that you should not. You should be optimistic relatively
Good.
because there's answers.
I like this.
Yeah, there's solutions and answers that I'm going to bring. I'm not going to just sit here and complain for an hour. I can. I don't
Yeah.
think people want to. There's plenty of radio where you can listen to, I believe the Ben Shapiro show. Go listen to him complain.
He has a show. Interesting.
Yeah.
Great.
Hey, we appreciate our listeners, bro.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
All right. Until next time. Hoka hey.